Ricky, are you aware of Dawn's Furniture's having a going out of business? Did they do their permit?
They paid for it, and then the Attorney General got involved in that one again too. Because they hired a company to do their going out of business sale, and they brought in 2.5 tractor trailer loads of furniture. So he got involved in it and put a stop to it. It's been going on for the past 3 weeks. But now he let them do what's called blowout sale.
So it's not going out of business?
Right.
So then do we have to give them back their?
No. We have their $500, we keep the first 75, and then we keep another 50. We keep 100 and a quarter and then refund them the balance after.
What's the difference between a liquidation and a...
Just the wording on it.
So if you do blowout, you can bring all the stuff in?
Well, it's not technically, but when Michael said because of the situation that they already made a commitment to them and signed the papers and did all of that, so he made the determination through the legal department to call it a blowout sale instead of going out of business. To give them, I guess, the lucrative of doing it for 60 days. We gained another business today in the town. It's moving out of the industrial development thing in the city.
I got a personal
So did I.
note on that at home.
So did
I brought it to work. I didn't have a chance today to follow up to see what's going on. I assume it's because they're expanding.
Expanding, and they have an opportunity. They're buying the building from the town. So it's one of the 4 buildings over there in the other industrial park. It's
When do you see the
41.
You'd think and I don't know that business, just reading between the lines, electricity, you'd think would be a big consideration. Wow.
It's nice to have their moving the manufacturing thing up there expanding.
Yeah.
So they're going to increase their employees and all this other stuff. They're expanding to 3 times the size of what they have.
You need a lot of space for the storage.
It's huge. But I'm not aware of anything that's been to codes and planning. Because they're, you know,
There's a development corporation.
going to be emissions issues with that.
No, it's-
And so,
They still have to go through our process.
I know, but I guess they're going to have, from what I read into it, they're having a meeting with the development corporation to close the lease or to purchase the building, and then after that, they're going to bring them to the town.
Sell it first, then see if you can run it.
Well, as long as the development corporation gets their money, that's what they're looking for.
Oh, they need some.
Don't want us to.
they said also,
Oh, she's pro.
because that is
This is the official black pen. We'll pass that around as well.
the fire trucks calls that stuff to start working and says it's a mess.
Marty coming tonight?
What are you doing?
I'm not aware that he isn't.
What is the disposal?
I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't.
They never get there yet, did we?
This is the official pen for that.
So you have to be careful about nuclear
Well.
energy, but, you know, and you gotta smash up your cartons and this and that, and you can't, it's no landfill.
Get some big duplicates.
So these questions,
Anything else to hand?
Bear with me then.
No, that's it.
That's it.
Have everybody standing behind you.
could be, but we don't
So
know.
you get their
Except for the
ceremonial.
That's right, because I don't like his other like fathers. Yeah, actually, our son said that they put in the town, but they. Exactly.
He doesn't have a place to park. So I consumed the last inappropriate.
This is change.
I've got 6:30, so I think we're going to begin. I'm going to call this work session to order for 6:30 p.m. at the Hammond Lane District 3 Fire Department. I think we do this again. We've got to build into the agenda a relationship with the local chiefs. We can also, see the facility, which is something we had wanted. Instead, we're just kind of
Here.
holding court in a corner. We could be in any corner. It wouldn't make any difference. But live and learn. Better mousetrap. I want to go right down the agenda for the most part today. This evening, I'm going to note that Mr. Mannix at this point anyway is absent. I think everybody's got a sense of what's going on, and we might see something from him later, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't. Jim Abdella is here this evening to answer questions. I think I might call on Jim to just be a little proactive and tell us what's changed since last time we met. You've got 2 draft resolutions. If you don't have them, let me know. They were kind of an 11th hour item. One would be, and it doesn't belong there. Yeah, it doesn't. One would be to simply receive the findings and recommendations from our town planning board. As you recall, we moved the zoning request for amendment be sent back to the planning board for their review and recommendation. So we would have one resolution that brings to us their report and recommendation that we would simply receive and place on file like we do anything else. But you want to pay attention to it because there are some recommendations. Then the second draft you should have is one to set a public hearing. The project is obviously very interested in going forward with this. If it's going to happen, it's important to their timetable for construction, et cetera, et cetera. And this would be on Monday the 13th. These both say June 8th, but Debbie, that's kind of Debbie's cue on these things, that it's drafted for this meeting, and then she'll bring it up to June 13th. As I recall, just to summarize and move the agenda, that the board expressed excitement, of course, with Schluter's systems constantly growing, expanding, and creating new jobs and helping to grow our economy, but concern with the request because it included a small parcel of land that would be rezoned to industrial, that would be adjacent to the Abenaki trailer park. And I think the planning board has worked with Jim, and you've come up with some changes in that. Maybe you could just share that with us.
Ultimately, the initial application was to have the property on the west side of the road of Pleasant Ridge, bounded between the railroad track corridor and Pleasant Ridge, to be all rezoned industrial.
Is that where Birch and Redwood Streets are?
I'm not familiar with Birch and Redwood. Which,
Is that in this area here you're talking about? Birch and Redwood?
no, I'm talking about this.
15, yes.
This
Okay.
this parcel's
No,
actually
June
industrial already.
15th.
It's really these parcels right here. It's on this side of the
Let
railroad.
me get this rushed for you.
Good technicality.
And we had the other triangular parcel, which is just on the west side of the railroad corridor, which is also owned by Schluter today, which is zoned mobile home, which we were looking at. We had requested to rezone industrial. What the planning board has essentially come back with the recommendation is that they would like to keep that triangular parcel zoned mobile home as further buffer from between mobile home park and the industrial zone. Two of the reasonings that they had indicated to us was A, we did not describe to them a complete plan for the parcel, and B, we did not give them a complete outline for access to the parcel. Right now, seeing that you have to somehow cross the railroad corridor, and how would we do that? with those outstanding questions. Once again, they indicated their recommendation to keep it mobile home now, but is recommending that you consider the rezoning of the other properties to industrial.
Everyone find your minutes, and I see it looks like most of you have it, the maps are in there. Jim, question, I believe I know the one you're talking about, but would you mind pointing it out on my map to make sure I didn't?
Sure. Which page would you like?
I've got page 4.
Page 4.
And I think I know exactly what you're saying. It's this parcel would remain mobile home?
Correct.
And what about this piece?
That piece is zoned industrial already.
It already is, okay. So that was the one.
Essentially, it's these
Is it-
parcels.
On page 4, is that what it is now, or is that what you're proposing?
Page 4 is what we asked for.
That was the initial request.
That's what we asked, actually, I can.
Page 3 is what it was originally.
Correct. Page 3 is what it was originally. And then actually, if you look at page 9, that's what the planning board is recommending. I don't know if everybody has color,
Yep.
but.
No, there's no color, so it's extremely difficult to try to figure this out.
That's my page 9. So ultimately, this parcel would remain mobile home.
And that's one of the ones that you wanted to change to industrial.
Correct. That was the one that we were asking to remain or to change to industrial. But they're
And these were the
recommending.
ones that were trying to change to industrial, right here and here.
Correct.
This, like you said, was already industrial.
This one this sliver right here is already industrial.
This one wasn't,
This one, this, and this are not, correct?
and this was already.
Yes, correct. Everything on this side of.
Now, this is Whispering Pines, I think, right here. This is where you go for Whispering Pines, right here.
I think,
It says Whispering Pines
yes.
comes up here.
Yep, Whispering.
Now,
Pines
is
Road.
that owned also? I see it's colored in the same color. Is that something that you own already, and Studer owns already?
They own, I believe, one parcel, and I think the remaining parcels are privately held. right
These are
now.
still privately owned,
I believe so, yes.
but it's all zoned industrial,
Correct.
right, even where they are.
Yes, that was all rezoned, I believe, during the last
Last update,
comprehensive
yeah.
plan.
So there is no buffer then for these people on this side over here,
Well,
here, right?
Ultimately, the buffer ends up being the railroad tracks, which is all along here.
And the railroad tracks have to have a certain easement on each side, don't they? I mean, from the center to the railroad tracks, you have to go, what's it, 60 feet or?
I'm not, I think the railroad corridor is wider than that, than 60 feet. I'm honest with you, I'm not sure what the width of that railroad corridor is.
I'm sure though, Tom, you're right, as far as being able to construct something along the track, there's a setback, may even be the better word than an easement.
I mean,
Well, a setback is good, but what, I would like to see some kind of a buffer, even though there's a railroad track, I'd like to see some kind of a buffer for the people here.
I mean, ultimately, you'll have further setback, just meeting town setbacks for property lines.
Mhm.
You know, with from that property line, you'll have to set back
And,
the current.
but in your proposals, and I admit I don't have those fully memorized yet, but this particular part here, now zone industrial, you will have an industrial buffer between here and here for the manufacturing.
You will have the right-of-way of the railroad tracks, and then you'll have the.
Some kind of vegetation or.
Correct. Oh, in terms of like, I mean, yes, I mean, that's something definitely.
That currently exists, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, it does, but if it's zone industrial and they clear it all out, you know, I mean, once it's zone industrial.
I mean, that's something typically the planning board, your planning board.
Right, that they would do when you
Further.
bring the next phase.
During the site
After
planning
this is
process.
done. Yep. Okay, I just wanted to be sure where it was, because I know all the places in here, and they border right up on that track. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions? Page 9 really is the more accurate end result of the process, and that triangle would remain manufactured housing. So those will be on board on the 15th. I said the 13th, stand corrected on that. Anyone have any other questions for Jim? Jim, we appreciate you coming both times. It really helps us to have someone that knows what's going on, and hopefully it's helpful to get the sense of what people are concerned about, so
Sure,
we can end up with a win-win for everyone.
Well, there's no other, this is all zone industrial except for that one little section there on the side of railroad tracks, right? So you don't really have any other things that are bordering on the property.
No, it's all generally,
So all you have to do is acquire a couple of homes and you have that section all the way along the large, well, it's not exactly a square, but almost a rectangle, I should say. On the other side of Whispering Pines towards, is that, anything planned there? Is that, there's some wetlands there?
not at this moment, nothing specifically planned. I mean, I know that the Schluter's attorney was here the last time and did indicate that they obviously had some discussions with those property owners, but I don't know of any specific arrangements at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds a little like the history of the quarry, where they periodically have to grow and they buy up properties that they need to incorporate into the business. As long as everybody's happy in the end, right?
And the use of that, you've already done in the preliminary?
Yes, in the back of the report.
Exhibit A?
Yep, the planning board, which is a proposed warehouse facility, about 30,000 square feet.
So there's not going to be any manufacturing there, that's just warehousing and trucks in and out?
I don't know the specifics of the facility now, but I mean, that's a proposed example of their use for that property.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming. And that would be the time frame then. Next Monday, those will be before the board. If they pass them, it'll set the public hearing. The proposed change would then go to the county for their review. And they'll have some comments. They may agree or disagree, may cause some change, and eventually it would work its way back to us as well after the hearing. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. You got anything else on the agenda?
No, just so I'll come back.
Not trying to kick you out or anything, no, you understand?
No, so I'll come back on the 15th. If there's any further questions.
Probably would not be any discussion. I mean, if anybody surfaces a concern, they should be getting in touch with you between now and then.
Okay.
On the 15th should simply be an action to either approve the resolutions, or disapprove them, or table them.
Okay. Okay, well, I will,
That's why we like to spend the time in the work session, get our homework done there.
I will be available between now and then if anybody wants to call me.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Number 2 on the list, and I put some items on this list that we really need to have some conversation about. I just needed to put this down. And, over the past, I was going to say a couple of weeks, or even longer, had a number of discussions with the sheriff, county sheriff, law enforcement over the last few years about the town. How we manage. There are a number of issues we can talk about, everything from dog-related, illegal drug use, traffic violations, all kinds of exciting misbehaviors taking place in the town. From my perspective and my desk, it's extremely difficult, frustrating, irritating to listen to constituents that have issues needing attention by law enforcement and not a very good success rate at getting law enforcement to become involved. David Duquette has had some really very, you see the reports, you talk about some of the situations he's walked into. He usually will take law enforcement with him. David is well trained. We're very fortunate. He knows how to handle situations. He's not foolish to go into a situation poorly prepared. But the Sheriff's Department has very limited resources. In fact, one of my comments after all that's been going on with the escape was, when I walked in today, I sure hope nobody comes to us with a serious dog problem. There are some serious dog problems. I suspect our dog control officer is going to be very busy 24/7, and there are priorities. I've often talked with the sheriff about, and Jim was involved in some of those conversations, having local vehicle and traffic ordinances that if someone were ticketed for speeding, unsafe driving, whatever the vehicle and traffic ordinances might be that apply, a law enforcement officer could write to those tickets. State police are not going to write to a local ordinance. We can't get state police to support local ordinances. About 9 years ago, when we were working on the noise ordinance, it was simply told straight up by a commander, the day is coming when you need to get your own law enforcement. We have the hotels, we have 4 exits off the interstate, we have a lot of activity. We talked about, and the sheriff is quite convinced that we could pay for a patrol based on the levies from infractions to the town ordinances. We've had malls, Consumer Square, and there's a difference between a mall and a shopping center. Don't ask me to give you the details, but there's a difference. And Benderson has sought help from the municipality, citing that every other municipality they're in, they have patrols that go in and they help with enforcement. Obviously, we can't. Again, the sheriff has indicated, the Benderson people have indicated with Consumer Square, if you just park the patrol car in the median, you'd be busy all day writing speeding tickets. Not to leave out all of the thefts that take place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on and on. It's very difficult, and I've heard the frustration of the sheriff many times, wanting to respond to some of our citizen issues, but they have so few patrols in a very large county. And again, if we have something going on, you can be sure everybody's on overtime. What I think we need to start looking at is, at the risk of being flipped, a rent-a-cop situation. We could enter into an agreement with the Clinton County Sheriff's Department whereby, I'm making up a number, but it's one we've generically talked, let's say for $70,000 a year, we would have a designated patrol who is a member of the Clinton County Sheriff's Department. He's trained by the County Sheriff's Department. He's insured by the County Sheriff's Department. He drives a county sheriff vehicle. But when he's on duty, his sole assignment is the 48 square miles that make up the town of Plattsburgh. Obviously, if there's a prison breakout, he's going to be called, just like if we have something beyond what a person can handle, they would call for reinforcements and backup. I'm very, I believe it's very possible that the activity written into town of Plattsburgh ordinances would put a huge dent in this cost. One person working 40 hours a week isn't going to solve all our needs. But the number of complaints that residents have, dogs, noise, general disturbance, four-wheelers tearing up their neighborhoods that we can't seem to get response to, would be responded. And I think it would be a very accountable way for us to try to help.
Would this include the codes enforcement officer and the things that we're not able to enforce there?
I think we do a good job with codes. The problem with codes is there are times when things are DEC, burn issues. There are times when it's truly the dog control officer. there are times when it is law enforcement. I think the codes officers do well with what they're allowed to do, but the same thing, if they're going into a very confrontational situation with, they're going to tell a guy that he didn't get his permit for his in-ground swim pool and now he's got to remove it, and that's very contentious, they would have a officer that might be able to go with him because he would be working for the town. Totally a sheriff's department officer, but contracted like we do to a degree with the court to provide his services for the town.
So it would not be another employee of the town necessarily?
Correct. Would not be. And that's key. We don't want that under any condition. But it may be a way as we continue to grow. I mean, you all know, we as a Class A town can have a constable. We did at one point. I don't think that's good enforcement either. I'm not saying I'm drafting a resolution or anything else. What I'm saying is that's my opinion from my desk and from what I hear from this community. And I think it's a way to solve it, and I think it's an inevitable move anyway. And I'm curious what the rest of you
So
think.
take care of the people that are burning in his barrels all the time and...
Again, that officer would probably liaison to DC. I don't think they'd have
Well,
jurisdiction.
If it's just one that's gonna pass the buck and we're not gonna get anything done anyway.
You're leaving out all vehicle and traffic, all the domestic disputes, the thievery that goes on in the mom pops, the kids that are hot rodding up and down my street, we can't seem to get someone to go deal with it. Relative to what you're saying though, and the things that I said could be codes, could be DEC. There are 2 DEC officers for the entire county. So, you don't get a very fast response.
Still,
Pardon?
there's still 2?
As far as I know. Well, there may be 1 because they had a retiree, and I don't know if they
Exactly.
replaced it.
I don't either.
The only thing worse than 2 could be 1. But you know what? There are so many situations that I think if we had a uniformed officer banged on a door and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" it would lead to corrective behavior, even if it were a burn situation. If we don't stop this immediately, I'm going to have to report this to DC and da-da-da. It's an officer. It's not one of us showing up with a polo shirt that says, Town of Plattsburgh logo on it. It has a little more sense of severity.
Bernie, what would be the advantage of not having him be an employee of the town?
We would not have any of the liabilities for all the insurances that go with it, the training, the issues of the vehicle, maintenance.
But then I think the sheriff's department will charge you for all that.
What we talked about in a very preliminary discussion was a flat rate that would be all-inclusive.
I think that's true, but I'm saying, I would guess if they're calculating, if they say John Jones will be hired at X, pension's gonna be Y, they put that into the hourly rate.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I'm sure they're not giving away training, but if
Yeah.
they're already training a group of people, to have one more person is a lot different than us providing a training for our entire force of one.
Well, I'm just saying, what they're doing, what we've done in the town is when Pat sends out the list and say, what does it cost for you as an employee? I can tell you they're doing exactly the same thing for that in the county. There may be advantages, I don't know if it'd be a financial advantage.
Yeah, I don't know either, and the liability advantage.
But it might be simpler in other ways.
It might be, and if this is something that the board would like to further entertain, obviously, I'd invite the sheriff to come and meet with us one time and discuss it.
I think that, I think it's something absolutely necessary.
I think I would like to see the sheriff at one of our meetings. One of the things that I would be interested in exploring through a conversation only with no commitment is, crime doesn't stop between the hours of 8 and 4. Does it make more sense to fund a cycle that has, an officer 24 hours, so it's not one person, and that becomes a shift? Because I think that that also sets a standard that isn't able to be met either. And I would also very clearly want to understand if we're going to collaborate or to coordinate these efforts, if an officer is in one part of the town and something else occurs, how do we kind of check the boxes as other things arise? Because it's not like crime occurs in West Plattsburgh and then Katyville, and it can be all over the town, at one time or another.
Well, are you suggesting like 4 officers?
No, what I'm saying is, I think it needs to be clear that the sheriff's department doesn't say, well, we'll take it as they come with this one officer as it is.
Problem is, right now, they cannot say, we'll be at those 4 events or even one event now.
Right, but I think it needs to be a clear expectation though, is it's not just, you get this line and then this one position is gonna handle the entire town. Because depending on the severity of different things, there needs to be ongoing support.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's why I'm saying, I think to have the sheriff here to talk through some of those things.
Yeah,
We
I'll
can
invite
talk
him to
about
a work
we can
session.
talk about the hypotheticals until we're blue in the
Because
face.
even if you look at just the population, never mind the roads and all that stuff, but just the population, we have more. There should be some of the percentage of the sheriff's deputies would be having to work in the town anyway.
If you're
Yeah,
pushing.
they do, yeah.
The state troopers too.
Oh, yeah, they patrol it.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were.
the only advantage of having someone, sort of say, on your payroll, you can pick up the phone, or Marty can pick up the phone, or Mike, or whoever it's.
Well, I would just worry that, okay, now we pay for one and now that's just one of the ones that's sent out town Plattsburgh anyway, there's not any really extra.
Well, I think they would
They
know
would put
that he,
another person on it. That was, I had that same concern, no, that it wouldn't be subsidizing the existing staffing. There would
And
be
that's,
a
and that's,
new
and that's,
person
and that's
on
what I'm
board.
getting at. is
One more.
I think it needs to be very clear,
One more.
how is the town serviced? What does this line do? You know, what is the chain of command as things arise in the town's border?
Yep. Okay, well, and I like to make little notes, maybe you all will. What are some of the concerns, questions? And I will see if we can get the sheriff in to meet with us, but I won't call him tomorrow
tonight.
or tonight.
Oh.
Or next week.
What, you think it's
You never know, hopefully.
Hopefully we can.
It's
Hopefully
not
we
looking
can.
pretty.
The next item, again, I'll start building my next work session agenda tomorrow morning as things come up. This is one of those, I tossed it out there, we came up with some good suggestions, and what do we do? We had some rather lengthy discussion back at the office at a department head meeting. There was a lot of concern, and it ended up being good discussion. I think how I framed this up and tried to do it appropriately. It was good discussion, it was well-meaning, to a person, every single individual. The concern was not out of a lack of respect and recognition for the volunteer firemen and the ambulance volunteers for what they do for the community. But it wasn't without recognizing if we didn't have them, there'd be a cost to the municipality. But it was, did you realize, if you're a volunteer firefighter, you actually have certain benefits already. And I did a little bit of research, looked some of this up, relative to New York State income taxes, relative to access to insurance and whatnot. There are some benefits already in place. When we heard from chiefs, well, one of the things that surprised me is they weren't overexcited about this. They thought it would be nice. In fact, I think in District 3 we were told pretty much it really wouldn't make the difference. The concern was, what about the people, and I started getting a list, that have special skills and training, and during times of emergency, they're called in by emergency services because they're a licensed provider, they provide services. One of the things that came up in discussion with one of our department heads was the Relay for Life even, the people who commit an enormous amount of time, recognizing that that isn't volunteering to provide for a service that would otherwise have to be paid for, but to help raise money to benefit the community, to contribute to the community, youth programs, coaching, and on and on and on. And you know, they had a real list, and then we got into the concern that so many of these other people are volunteering in so many other very important ways. What might be the impact on them if we single out one group. And I really didn't have a good response to that. I mean, it was heartfelt. It wasn't critical, believe me, I can't say that enough. And these are the managers. And there was a slight concern about time, but nobody seems to have a time anyway. I mean, we're dealing with a time problem, we're dealing with chiefs. So, I mean, I guess my advice to the board at this moment is we need to ponder this one a little bit more before we take an action that could have an adverse ripple in our rank and file. Okay? If you can accept that, we can just move on. I just wasn't going to not bring it up and let it die a natural death or anything like that. It wasn't fair. It was some very positive conversation that had some real merit to it. And I would hesitate to do anything without trying to capture some of that before we do. So you all can hear that too. That's something we live with for the moment. I think if nothing else, we've certainly expressed our appreciation of those groups and all they do. And watch this part where I start watching time a little because we have to be back in Katie'ville, and we have some special things for Katie'ville this evening that we'll be doing, and I know they're anxious to meet with us about the possible land purchase. North Country Canine Services came to me with a request. I don't know a lot about North Country Canine. You have what I have to a great extent. Mr. Martin did come in and meet with me. He shared what they do with their canine training. Again, the services they provide to the community. He had picked up on the fencing we have at the back. And it's old fencing. You may know, Ricky, I think it came from the Air Force Base. It's not in horrific shape, but it's been sitting there for years. He was like a child in a Toys R Us store. They said, we have 10 minutes. Really has requests, as you can see from his letter, would the municipality contribute that to the canine services so they could expand their yard and training area for their dogs.
This is a not-for-profit.
I don't know, Jim. I can't certify that they are. It reads that way. If they are not-for-profit, that would be the key.
Yep. I'm doing it.
I'd also, I think it's only fair to look at a process, have a mark from a facility standpoint to evaluate that material.
He said, get it out of here. I don't need it. I'm not using it.
I'm not disagreeing, but like we do with all documented items, that I think you should put that in writing.
Okay.
You know, if we're gonna move forward on that, because people can drive by town hall and say, ooh, I like that, I could use that.
Somebody
You know,
did
all-
that.
Well, somebody already did that, they took 100 rolls of fencing.
Right,
Brand new.
but I'm talking about
You know,
various
brand-
things that the
oh,
town has.
brand-
over there.
Brand new
Chain link
stuff
fencing?
that was
Yeah.
green coated fencing, you know?
In fact, this is still sitting on the pallets, I think painted PAFB on them. Yeah. It would be good to get rid of it.
Does it have we ever tried to sell it?
I honestly don't recall that it was ever in one of those. I mean, it may have
It
been.
took 56 rolls the first time.
That was my first
How many are
concern. We still need to.
We had 100. They took 56
It
rolls the
probably
first
needs
time, and
to
they
change.
came back.
Got the
Well, it's not for profit, it's one thing, if it's for profit, you can't do it.
Well, I can easily find out if they're a not-for-profit organization. I can easily have Art document its value to the town and its useful history of how long it's been there. If they are for-profit, and I don't think there's an issue with the value, we will be doing another surplus. We'll put it on there and just tell them bid up.
Did that.
That's one of those things you just want to get rid of if you can. It looks like a good use, so I will follow up with that then, as indicated. That works for everyone. Solar City update. Those are the kinds of things I like to keep going until some things are resolved. We have a meeting coming up this week with Jennifer Jacob. She's flying in from Philadelphia to meet with us to go over the PPA. The PPA we've had previous up to now is a boilerplate document. It appears to be very much like the final document. I expect will be. I don't have a final document. I can't share it. I hope to have one this week. I spoke again with Mike Zerlo, County Administrator, and I mentioned before I put a lot of weight on Mike's tenacity, and he had been working just about 2 years with Solar City, vetting them, the county organization. He's had a number of meetings with them, etc. They've signed their agreement with Solar City. Mike's words could not have been more positive. Absolutely no concern that they will deliver. They signed a 20-year agreement. His words, quote, "It's a no-brainer, Bernie," end quote, that you will save money. I had some questions. Some of my concern is I'm not a solar energy expert to actually be able to review and evaluate documents. Mike and Rodney said they had gone through, but the county association has done a number of things with this group. And as you know, the governor's office also awarded them. So the goal is this week we will come up with a power purchase agreement with Solar City, and you should expect to have a resolution on the 15th to approve. We are running out of time. There's a site you can go to and it shows you, and we've talked a few times about this, round 1 funding and round 2 is less benefit. Round 1 is starting to fill up now as they make approvals. Mike indicated you not only are going to save with your reduced cost for energy, but remember you're getting these NYSERDA credits back as well. He said you will save lots of money. He said if they say it, and he thought they were quite good. For example, one to negotiate with. One item on the boilerplate document talks about any litigation would take place in San Francisco, this California-based company. And just over the phone, I let her know, as much as we'd all like to go to San Francisco for a while to...
Keep it in, Bernie.
Yeah, I know, sorry, Councilor.
He's got that for the county,
Right,
he
yeah.
doesn't need it for the city.
Yeah, it doesn't need double dip that. I said, obviously, that's not going to work, and she said, okay. So, I feel very, very positive, and I think if we, you scrutinize things to death, the train goes by, and then you wonder. So
This was what you put in? Where the 7.5 acres?
that looks like the one for the cable fire department on the corner. We're adjacent to that, though.
Bernie, I thought that if you were doing the PPA, the municipality does not get the NYSERDA credits, and the company that owns the solar.
That's a question we have to ask Jennifer.
I think that's the whole plan.
My understanding of it was more like that, and Mike's comment today was you're going to get that too. Now, I don't know if we get that through them or that's how they calculate them. I don't know. We'll have to get the
Elon Musk,
details.
baby, you don't get that.
I'm with Meg.
That's right.
And the 2 different symposiums that we've gone to, I'm pretty confident that that's part of their consumption
That's the
of
point
it.
of the.
They're the ones that go out and get the,
Right.
that's what I thought.
And that's not to say that there isn't a win factor for us, but we don't
We're not
get that as
getting
well.
anything out of
Right.
So we're going to ask all those questions. I guess my comment with Mike is I think he's about as tough at vetting something as one could be. And he is unequivocally in support of that. So when you get the document with an assumption we'll be able to finalize one, look it over because we're running out of time.
Is the true central school proposal have to go at the same time?
Well, I don't know where that one's at. We have, we being Jim and I, Jim authored a lease agreement for the Peru School District in the event they go forward. They have the same time frame that we have to be working in. I'm not hearing anything from them. So I don't know if they've, changed their mind, found another spot, or not.
Do you think the superintendent is aware of the timeframe? You made aware of that?
I don't think so.
I'm not representing the
Yeah.
project at all, so I haven't given him any of that information. I assume he knows that much, or his building and grounds manager does, Mr. Lemoyne. And some of the casual conversation I had with them, they seemed to be knowledgeable of what they were doing. I mean, the presentation the two of you went to was at the Bruce School.
Yep, it's a lot to take in though.
Tell me.
Did you think
Yeah.
they knew the timeframe or not?
The president of their school board was there along with, other members of administration, so I have to guess that, to express an interest, as they did about either renting, purchasing, whatever type of property, that they'd be familiarized at least with the timeline.
I mean, they're working with different companies, so it's hard to know.
Right.
The
Right.
information.
Maybe they don't have a timeline with that company.
That's all nice.
No, because
That's
again, it goes back to those credits that we were talking about, and really that becomes
Did
part
you
of the
say that
driver.
company was one that was unstable?
I don't know anything about the company they're working with. No, I didn't say that. There was one, I don't remember the name anymore, recently filed for bankruptcy protection, 14 million. I don't believe that's the company Peru is dealing with.
When I talked to Brendan Owens, who was representing Peru School, there was no talk of time.
But we have a draft agreement in the event we're ready to go forward.
Yeah.
If that materializes, that will come before you to act on as well. That's the update with both of them. It's probably time we start heading for cable, so let's just stop with natural gas. So I'm going to close this out at 7:13.